Hi. My theme is existence, and so I decided to come up with my own quote of what I thought existence was supposed to be. And I said, humans are only temporary.
Okay.
Our lifetime as humans on Earth is fleeting.
Okay.
As an individual, I'm quite a very deep person.
Okay.
This never really manifested in me until I came to this school, and so I
That's
started
interesting.
thinking about like really deep things. Yeah. So I started looking at organs, hearts and lungs specifically, because I think that hearts and lungs, as human beings, we survive on these, but yet they're such fragile and fleeting things. And we base our lives and we survive based on this, so I thought it was very important to show this. So I decided to do many of these to represent kind of, because there's so many of us obviously, and I wanted to show like different, I tried to experiment with color.
Yeah.
And so I did ones with that are beige and then ones that are pink and then some that are anatomically correct and some that aren't. Like this one is bleeding a little bit. I tried to experiment with water falling down words. And here I also have black. And I tried to make these lines on the lungs really thin and kind of special in a way. And the meaning of this wings is because I think angels are very conceptual. I mean, it's a concept that human beings kind of made up in our own minds. And I think it's important because it symbolizes what's real and what's not real. Because as human beings, we are real, but we think of things that are not real. I made this out of paper, hand cut, each piece, and they're layered. And at first, the color of this behind was red. I think I wanted it to symbolize blood. But then at the end of the course, I decided to paint it black to black because I think it would have more of a aesthetic effect. When I thought about existence, I thought about what's real and what's physically here. But when I thought about like concepts, they're kind of just in our minds. So that's unreal but real at the same time. So that kind of made a connection. The subject is my sister, and I wanted to show, I took these with the lights off and the camera with the flash on moving really quickly. I wanted to show that the images are kind of fleeting. They kind of just came out this way, and I think that really showed my theme really well because it's such, like, it almost has no form, and it's really fast. It's like no real physicalness to these images. I actually took a lot of photos before I could pick out a couple of them, and I realized that photography is actually a really long process of exploration, and I wanted to pick the photos that were simple, like once again, because I'm like simple, and I don't know, but these photos are quite different from those over there. These are kind of scary, like this one in particular, because I wanted to show like the two-sided nature of human beings and how we exist in this world. But I mean, I believe that we exist for a good reason. We're here, we're sent to this earth for a very special reason, and I think that this is kind of dark and it represents the kind of sporadic wickedness that all of us have inside of us, or like bad, imperfect thoughts that we all have within ourselves, because we're only human. I made it almost a month prior to the exhibition, and I think it's very significant because it really symbolizes my growth. And when people come into the exhibition, they like to look at the photos, and the hearts, and they're very fascinated by that. But my favorite pieces are these because it solidifies the end of my journey throughout the visual arts course. And here I experimented with texture that I didn't do in the hearts. And so I decided to cut out real small individual pieces of rice paper to make kind of a very interesting texture. And this manifested really well because I tried to use oil pastels. And I think that the texture itself is very rich, but then the oil pastels kind of look almost cheap, but I like it in a way. It's the thing about contrast again. Kind of structural pieces, because I'm interested in architecture and I want to be an architect, so I decided to end my journey with something very structural instead of like physical. And this also represents our physical being, because when we leave this earth, the end of our existence, we kind of leave behind lots of structures like buildings and stuff like that. So it represents the more physical side as opposed to the fleeting nature of humans. And so for an aesthetic effect, I looked at Gustav Klimt because I think that his work is very structural as well, even though it's kind of hard to tell. And I loved his gold phase, so I decided to incorporate some points of gold, so for emphasis. And here also I looked very closely at value. I darkened some lines to make sure that there was a focal point in each of them. And this kind of ends it all. It kind of all links until the end, and then it stops. Through this journey, I learned that art is development. I realized that prior to being in 11th grade, I always thought that art was like impulsive. I always thought that you could just draw something and look amazing. But I realized that this is obviously not true. To do good art is to develop ideas.